The call came in at 8:14 p.m. A boy's voice, trembling, breathless. "Please, my dad's not breathing. There's so much blood." When first responders arrived, they expected trauma, chaos. But what they found was a boy sitting on the front steps, arms wrapped around his knees. His eyes were red, but dry. His face was pale, but still. Almost too still. That boy was Ryan Torres. He was 13 years old, and he had just reported his father's murder. What no one knew at that moment, not the neighbors gathering in the street, not the rookie officer who offered him a blanket, was that Ryan had already rewritten the entire crime scene. And for the next 3 days, he would have the FBI convinced he was just a heartbroken son. Ryan's story was simple. Too simple. He had been in his room, playing video games. He didn't hear anything unusual. Then, his mother screamed. His father was lying face down in the kitchen. Blood pooled under his shirt. A knife was on the floor. Detectives noted how clearly he spoke, how consistent his timeline was, how he offered details without hesitation. For a 13-year-old, he seemed incredibly composed. But there was one thing missing: emotion. Not once did Ryan ask who did it, or why. Not once did he cry in front of officers. One seasoned detective wrote in his report, "He's either numb from shock or something else entirely." When the local police flagged the case as unusual, the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit was brought in. On paper, this was a tragic domestic homicide. But they suspected more. The scene looked too clean. No signs of forced entry, no fingerprints but the family's, and no defensive wounds on the victim. So they brought Ryan in, no handcuffs, no pressure, just questions. They let him talk, and talk he did. He spoke about his dad's work stress, the recent arguments, the sleepless nights. He described the moment he found the body, down to the smell of the blood, and the way his father's hand was curled beside him. But here's the problem. Ryan described things no one told him, like how the knife was embedded in his father's chest, a detail investigators intentionally withheld from the media. When asked how he knew that, Ryan simply shrugged. "Maybe I just guessed." FBI profiler Dana Rios watched from behind the glass. She'd interviewed over 300 suspects, many of them children. But Ryan unsettled her. "He wasn't performing," she later said. "He was studying us." At one point in the interview, an agent leaned in and whispered, "Ryan, we already know the truth. We just need you to say it." Ryan didn't flinch. He stared at the table, then looked up and said, "But to Rios, that was the crack in the ma. You're lying, you don't know anything." And then he smiled, just barely. But to Rios, that was the crack in the mask. The FBI couldn't hold him. There wasn't enough evidence. No confession. No witnesses. No murder weapon with his prints. The knife had been wiped clean, but Ryan had made one mistake. His room hadn't been fully searched. Inside a drawer, behind a stack of books, agents found a spiral-bound journal. Not a diary with emotions or grief. At his age, Ryan wasn't tried as an adult. He was sentenced to juvenile detention until he turned 21. Public opinion was divided. Some saw a broken child failed by a broken home. Others saw a cold-blooded killer who knew exactly what he was doing. But the truth sits somewhere in between. Ryan wasn't a monster in the closet. He was a boy in a hoodie, quiet, smart, unassuming. And that's what makes it terrifying. In a world where we expect monsters to look like villains, sometimes they look like children. Ryan Torres didn't run from the law. He stood in front of it, calm, composed, and convincing. And for 3 days, he outsmarted the most elite investigators in America. Because when you don't feel guilt, you can fake anything. Ryan Torres had just turned 15. He was now in a juvenile facility, isolated from his peers, monitored 24/7, still quiet, still unreadable. He rarely spoke to anyone except his court-appointed therapist. Dr. Karen Ellison had spent 14 months trying to reach him. At first, he offered only surface answers. But one day, without warning, he handed her a folded piece of paper. "Read it," he said. "I never meant for anyone to find it, but maybe it's time." It was a letter. Not to the court, not to the FBI, but to his mother. "Mom, you always said to keep my head down, to stay quiet. That Dad didn't mean the things he said, that he was tired or stressed or hurting. But I was hurting too. Every time he slammed the door. Every time he called me soft or useless. Every time he made you cry and said it was your fault. I thought if I told someone they'd take me away. I thought if I fought back, I'd become just like him. So I waited, I watched, I learned how to act, how to hide it. And one day, I just stopped feeling scared. I started feeling something else. I know what I did was wrong. I'm not asking for forgiveness, but I want you to know I didn't do it to be free. I did it because I thought you would never leave him. So I did. I'm sorry. Love, Ryan." Dr. Ellison took that letter straight to the court. It wasn't a confession. He had already confessed. It wasn't a justification either. It was context. What emerged next was a psychological profile even deeper than the FBI had constructed. Ryan wasn't a sociopath. He didn't lack empathy. He lacked safety. What he exhibited was complex PTSD, often seen in children exposed to chronic emotional and psychological abuse. His flat affect, a survival mechanism. His planning, a coping method born from helplessness. His lack of guilt, not because he didn't feel anything, but because he was taught never to show it. Ryan hadn't outsmarted the FBI just with intellect. He had outsurvived his own mind. The state launched a psychological reevaluation, and something rare happened. Ryan was moved, not to a stricter facility, but to a therapeutic youth treatment center focused on recovery, not just punishment. He was given a mentor, a teacher, a voice. Years later, he wrote an open letter for a juvenile justice advocacy group. "I'm not proud of what I did, but I was 13. I was scared, and I thought silence was safer than asking for help. I wish someone had noticed sooner. That someone had asked, why doesn't this boy cry?" Sometimes, the quiet ones are hiding more than guilt. They're hiding pain. We often see crime as black and white, innocent or guilty, victim or killer. But in Ryan's case, the truth lived in the gray, in the silence between words, in the fear behind a calm face. He wasn't just the boy who fooled the FBI. He was the boy no one ever heard. In the end, Ryan Torres wasn't a cold-blooded mastermind. He was a broken child, trapped in a world that taught him silence was safer than speaking out. The FBI saw calculation. The courts saw control. But only time revealed the truth. Ryan didn't kill because he enjoyed it. He killed because no one ever came when he cried. This doesn't excuse what he did, but it changes why we understand he did it. And maybe, in a better world, if someone had looked past the calm and asked the right questions sooner, this story might never have needed to be told.